Okay, so just tell me what are the semantic elements in HTML?
So semantic tags, basically they are the tags that clearly describe its meaning to both the browser and the developer. Like they have a meaningful name which tells us about the type of the content. For example, there is this header tag there, nav, section, aside, footer. All these tags are there, which tells us like if we are using a footer tag, then this tells us like we should write the contact information here or the authorship information and all. So like that is whatever semantic tag is.
Okay, that's fine. And what is the difference between position relative and position absolute?
If we are using the position relative, then in the like offset in it will try to position itself according to the its current position. But if we are using the position absolute, then it will look for the first non-static ancestor. If the non-static ancestor is present, then it will the element it will position itself according to its like according to that ancestor. Otherwise, it will position itself according to the browser or the viewport dimensions.
Okay, that's fine. What is Flexbox?
Basically, Flexbox it's a display property, and it helps us to design the layout of a website very easily without having to write so many float or the positioning properties. And in this flex, we can use many properties like the flex direction is there, justify content is there, align items is there. So it helps us to make the layout of a website.
Okay, that's fine. And what is box model in CSS?
So a box model, like by default, when the browser shows our element, it automatically like it shows it in the form of a box. It feels like every element is surrounded by a invisible box around it, and there are four different layers of this box. First is the content, second is the padding, third is the border, and fourth is the margin. For this content, the actual content is there, and then padding is the area between the content and the border. Then there is border is there, and after that margin, it is the space between the elements, like, or we can say it's the space around an element.
Okay, that's fine. Now let's move to the JavaScript questions. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So before, okay, let's go to the JavaScript. So what is event loop?
Event loop, basically it's a runtime model which is present in the JavaScript engine, and it continuously checks the call stack and the callback queue. And it monitors the call stack and the callback queue, and if there is a callback function waiting in the callback queue to be executed, then it will check if the call stack is empty or not. As soon as the call stack is empty, it will take that callback function from the call stack and push it into the call stack to be executed. So this is the event loop.
Okay. So suppose there is a promise. I have looked something inside the promise, and another one is the set timeout. So which one will execute first? I mean, which one will result us first? The console log.
I think the callback function which is attached with the promise, because with the callbacks which are attached to the promise, they go into the micro task queue, which has a higher priority than the call stack queue, which has a higher priority than the callback queue. So I think that will execute first, and then the callback function which is in the set timeout.
Okay. Let's move to the another question. Do you know about the DOM?
Yes, so DOM stands for Document Object Model. Basically,
Mhm.
what happens when the browser or client send the information to the server, then server sends us different kinds of data, like it can be any HTML, XML, YML, any kind of data. And when browser gets this HTML, it converts it into JavaScript object through the inbuilt functions in the browser called parsers, and it parses that HTML into JavaScript object and stores it in the memory. So this object that we get from parsing the raw HTML, that is known as the document object model, and its structure, it's like a tree of nodes where every node denotes a HTML element. So this is what DOM is.
Okay, that's fine. What is hoisting in JavaScript?
So basically, hoisting is a phenomenon in JavaScript where we can access any variable or functions before we have initialized them.
Mhm.
Basically, hoisting is related to the memory allocation phase of the execution context, because even before executing a single line of code, we have already assigned memory to the functions and variables. And for the where declarations, like all the declarations where latent const, they are hoisted, but the where declarations, they are hoisted very differently from the latent const declarations. The where declarations, they are attached to the global object, that is window for the browser, but latent const declarations, they are hoisted in a separate memory space called script, and we cannot access it before we have put some value in them. Also, they are said to be in a temporal dead zone, and like it's an area of block where latent const variables are hoisted, and until they are initialized with a value. So if we try to access those declarations in the temporal dead zone, we get a reference error that we cannot access this variable before initialization. And if I talk about the functions hoisting, then the function expression and the arrow functions, they are not hoisted uh, because they behave like any other variable, and a special keyword called undefined is stored in them. Only the normal functions or the regular functions are hoisted. So this is about hoisting, sir.
Okay, okay, that's fine. What is closure?
So basically, a closure is a function bundled together with reference to its lexical environment.
Mm.
For example, like an inner function, it has access to the parameters and the variables declared in its outer function, even when the outer function has been returned. What happens, like when the outer function is returned, so the functional execution context created for that should have been deleted from the call stack, and the variables declared, that should also have been deleted, but that is not the case. When JavaScript engine, it sees that inner function is using the variables of its outer function, so it takes those variables from the stack memory. Since the local variables of a function are stored in the stack memory, it takes it from stack memory and put it into the heap memory, and the inner function get a reference of those variables from there. So it's like inner function, it remembers where it was lexically present, even when its parent is not present there. So that is the closure, sir.
Okay. What is callback hell?
Callback hell, it's like there are multiple callbacks nested stacked below one another, where every callback is taking an argument, which is the result of the previous callback. So it makes our code very unreadable and unmaintainable, and our code starts to grow horizontally instead of vertically. And to avoid this problem of callback hell, there is this concept of promises in JavaScript.
Okay, so how many parameters it has? It have?
Callback hell,
No, no, no. In promise.
I think it takes
Okay,
a
this.
callback function where there is two parameters. This resolve and reject is there.
Okay, let's move to the another question. Do you know about the map filter and reduce?
Yes, sir. So this map, filter, and reduce functions, they are like the higher order function in JavaScript, because they take another function as an argument inside it. And
Mhm.
map function, it iterates through every element of the array and do some necessary operation on it. And for this, three conditions must be satisfied. Like the input should be an array, the output should be an array, and the length of the output should be same as the length of the input array. Now we come to filter function. Then it filters the elements of the array based on the condition that we provide inside it. And it also returns us an array. and the length of the array that must be less than or equal to the length of the input array. And this reduce function, it takes all the elements of the array and makes it into a single final value. Like it reduces all the elements of an array into a single value, and it takes two parameters, that is the accumulator and second is the current value. So this is what my filter and reduces.
Okay, that's great. How many scopes are there in JavaScript?
Scopes, I think global scope is there, local scope, functional scope, and block scope is there.
Okay. Do you know about the call, bind, and apply?
Yes, sir. So basically, this call, apply, and bind, that is the, it's like a, it helps us to do the function borrowing. Like we can borrow a function from some object and can use it with the data of some other object. For this call method, it takes two argument. First is the reference, like where I want my this keyword to be pointing to which object, and second is the argument to the function. And apply is same as call. The only difference is that the later arguments it takes it in the form of an array, wherein call we have to pass the arguments explicitly. And bind is also same as call, but difference is that instead of just immediately invoking the function, it returns us the copy of the function which we can invoke later in our code. So that is call, apply, and bind, sir.
Okay, fine. What is this keyword?
So this keyword in JavaScript, it refers to the object, and which object it will refer to, it depends. Like for example, if you just do the console.log this, then it refers to the global object, that is
Mm-hmm.
window for the browser. And if we are using it inside a function, then I think global object is the default binding for this inside a function. And if you are using the strict mode in JavaScript, then inside a function it will give us undefined. Uh, uh, I only know about this, sir.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fine. What is the difference between, I mean, arrow function and normal function?
So arrow function, basically it allows us to write shorter function syntax, like it allows us to write less code than in the regular function.
Mm-hmm.
And arrow functions, they are not hoisted like the regular function. And I think in arrow function, when we use this keyword, it will always point it to the object that defined the arrow function. But in regular function, there is like not anything like that. And in arrow, we cannot use arrow function as the constructor also, while we can use regular function as the constructor. I can only think of this much right now, sir.
Oh, okay, that's fine. What is memoization? Do you know?
Memoization, it's like we are storing a cached value. Like if we are using a function, then we are storing its returned value as a cache value. And like basically it is used to avoid the re-rendering problem in React, I think. If Like it is used to do the performance optimization.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, the returned value of a function will be cached, and we don't have to calculate any heavy or expensive calculation on every render. So that is what memoization is.
Okay.
For example, we use this memoization in the use memo and the use callback hook in React.
Mhm. Okay, so just tell me the difference. I mean, just tell me about the spread operator and the rest operator.
So it's both, basically both are denoted by the three dot or the three periods.
Mm-hmm.
And spread operator, it allows expressions to be expanded in places where multiple arguments or elements or variables are expected. And like some of the common use case of this spread operator, it can be like we can quickly copy an array, or we can concatenate two or multiple arrays, or we can pass the elements of an array as an argument into a function. So these are some of the common use cases of a spread operator. And the rest operator, it is basically same as the spread operator. The only difference is that like it's opposite of a spread operator. It instead of expanding the instead of expanding the any expression, it will collect multiple element and it will condense it into the form of a new array element. So that is what rest operator is.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, can you say share me your screen?
Yes. Is it visible, sir?
Yes, it is visual. Okay. So in the chat box, I have sent you one code. So just tell me the output of this.
This is the spread operator, and I think in the object we are spreading the array here.
Mhm.
So uh, I don't know. I think it will just give us the array elements like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Inside the object, or how it will look. Can you just type the answer?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I think it's just going to return me 1. I think the first value. I think so.
Okay.
I'm not sure about
That's
it.
actually that's not the right answer. You can just copy
Yeah.
it and open any editor, your favorite editor, any
Okay.
JavaScript editor. I mean.
Let me just do it online.
And
Okay.
yeah, so this is how it will return.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Okay, let's move to the another question. So what you have to do? Mm, so don't paste it anywhere. Just tell me the output. What should be the output?
Promise to 10.
Have you implemented the promise before, by the way?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So first 2 will be printed first, and then I
Mhm.
think the answer will be 2, 4, and 8.
Eight. And what about the console log inside finally?
Yes, finally will be executed. It will be executed like no matter what happens if there is a bug in our program.
So inside the finally, what will be the output?
This console.log v then 8 will be printed here, but since it's not it's returning 0 from here.
Mhm.
So maybe after this 0 will also be printed.
Okay, so you are telling it will be 2 and 4 and then 8 and 0. Can you
But I
write?
think only 2, 4, and 8 will be printed, I think, because at finally I think the like our code will be finished here only.
Actually finally execute at the last, right? So
Yes.
inside the finally there will be no any value. It will not receive any value. So it will be undefined. And and rest your answer is right. It will be 2, 4, and 8.
Okay, so if this finally block, it will not be executed.
It will be executed at the last after the completion of the promise.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Sending you the another thing here. Okay, so just tell me what will be the output. So this is the array, and there is another value is setting there, like foo.
Okay. Like if you are using for in, then it will iterate through the index of the array. Like it will give us the array index.
Mm-hmm. And in case of like what will be the output? Can you just write for the first one and second one?
I think for the first one, I don't know about this array.foo. What will happen with this?
Mm-hmm.
I think for first it will be 0, 1, 2, 3, and for second it will be 3, 4, 5, 6 only.
Okay. Okay, but you know, like for the part of foo, it is setting a key as well, right? So for the first one, it will return the foo, right? And for the second one, it will just return 3, 4, 5, 6, because in for in it returns the keys,
Hmm.
right? That's why.
Okay.
Okay, then let's move to the React questions. Okay.
Okay. So,
Okay, so let me open it. Okay, what is the virtual DOM?
so basically, a virtual DOM it's like a in-memory representation or a virtual representation or a lightweight copy of the real DOM. So like
Uh-huh.
when our application is rendered for the first time, then a tree of React elements is created and it is put into the memory, and it is in sync with the real DOM. And when any state or prop change happen or like any updation happen, then a second copy of virtual DOM is created, and then both of these are compared with each other through a heuristic algorithm called diffing algorithm, and
Uh,
only the updated values are sent to the first copy of virtual DOM. Now we have to make the changes in the real DOM, and since the first copy is in sync with the real DOM, then again both of these will be diffed, and only the updated values will be sent to the real DOM. And this process is known as reconciliation. When we are making changes in the real DOM, only those updated value. So basically, it is used to increase the performance of our application. So that is why React uses this concept of virtual DOM.
okay, that's fine.
Okay, sir.
Okay, that's fine. By the way, just tell me the advantage of React.js. Why we should use it?
First is this virtual DOM, so it makes the rendering of our application very fast.
Mm-hmm.
Second is since we use JSX in React, so it helps us to write React application very easily, and it helps us to write the HTML and JavaScript together. We don't have to put the markup and logic in the separate files. We can just use it together without having to write any like create element or the append child methods. Third is one way data binding is there. Like we can only send the data from the parent to the child element. And fourth is single page applications. We can make single page application with the help of React. Then it is very. I feel if you know JavaScript, then it is very beginner friendly. It is easy to learn and easy to use. So these are some of the features of React.
Okay. What is one-way data binding?
One-way data binding, like data can be flow from only from the top level to the bottom level, or from the parent to the child elements. We cannot send data from a child to parent. So that
Okay.
is one-way data binding.
Hmm. Then how we can share the data to the different components?
If you want to share data to different components, like we can use this use context hook, which helps us to declare the state globally, or if we talk about like if there is a large application, then we can use Redux there, where we can just store all our global data in a centralized store where any component can get data from there.
Okay. By the way, how Redux works?
So Redux, there is this three core concept in Redux: action, reducer, and store. In store, where is all our application data is stored in the form of an object tree, and action is it's like a plain JavaScript object that must have a type attribute, and reducer is a function that takes two arguments, that is the state and the action, and based on what action we are dispatching, like what action we want to perform on our state, then reducer will perform that action and it will return us the new state. So that is how the like it works, Redux.
Okay, that's fine. And what is the higher order component? Do you know?
Yes, sir, I've heard about it. Like, if there are some functionality in our program, which is like if you want to implement it to more than one component, then instead of writing it again and again, we can just write it in a higher order component. It takes a component as an argument, adds some functionality and the data to it, and it returns as a new component. So basically, it's like we have to write less code in our program. We don't have to write the same logic again and again. We can just use it once, and we can just pass any component to it. It will add that functionality and the data in that component, and it will return us that component.
Okay. And can you tell me a bit about the lifecycle methods in React.js?
Yes, sir. So like every component in React, it has a life cycle which we can monitor and manipulate during its three main phases. First is the mounting phase, second is updating phase, and third is unmounting phase. Mounting is when we are putting the element into the DOM. And during this phase, four of the built-in method gets called. That is the constructor method. Then in constructor, basically it is used to give the like to set the initial value of the state. Then there is static get derived state from props. It
Mhm.
means we are like changing the value of the state based on what props is passing, and it is called just before rendering of our application. And then third is the render. Fourth is component did mount. So component did mount means after our application is rendered, if you want to perform some side effect, like if you want to fetch some data from the server, or if you want to implement the timer functionalities, then we can use this component did mount, and it has a resemblance to the use effect hook that we use in functional based component. Then after this, a component goes into the updating phase. Means if we are changing any state or prop, then it goes in the updating phase. And during this, again, five built-in method gets called. First is the get derived state from props. Second is should component update. Basically, it returns us a boolean value, and by default, its value is true. Like the component will be updated again and again. But we can if we want to like stop the re-render of the same component again and again, if the previous prop or the current prop is same, then we can return false from here. Like for example, we use this in pure components in a class based component.
Okay.
Then third is render. Fourth is get snapshot before update. It means like before it gets called before the changes in the virtual DOM are to be reflected in the real DOM. And fifth is component did update. It is again used to perform some side effect in our application. Then during the unmounting phase means we are removing the element from the DOM, or
Mhm.
we are just destroying that component. Then it goes into the unmounting phase, and during this only one built-in method gets called, that is the component will unmount. And it means that like this method gets called just before we are unmounting that component, so we can just we can perform the cleanup of our code here. Like we can remove the subscription, or we can remove the event listeners, and we can cancel the network request calls and all here, otherwise it will cause the memory leak error in our program. So that is
Okay.
the phases.
Okay, that's fine. By the way, how do you handle it in functional component?
This lifecycle method.
Yes.
For like in functional based component, if we want to do the component did mount, component did update, and component will amount, then we can do this use effect hook there.